The story begins with a high school student named Tommy Riley. For some reason, he's forced to move and start a new life with his father. Their new home is in a rough neighborhood where gangs roam freely.
It's a black game, home. Y'all don't want your whiteness shoving through my hoops. Punk ass, keep walking. Look at them boots you wearing, man. Stupid ass.
On Tommy's first day at his new school, a group of local teens tries to mess with him. Even worse, it turns out the 3 bullies who harassed him earlier are in the same class as Tommy. Not wanting to cause trouble, he complies when they tell him to switch seats 3 times.
You in my seat now.
But by the 4th time, he's out of patience.
Get out of my seat, Snowface.
I don't think that I can do that.
Just as a fight is about to break out, the teacher walks in, telling everyone to sit down. Although the bullies threaten to settle things at recess, Tommy lets it go. "I'll catch you on the greasy side," they sneer. During the break, the bullies confront Tommy again, this time with more friends. But once again, Tommy is saved when another group of gang members interrupts the confrontation.
Abraham Lincoln.
Thought you was thrown out of school. Hey, this is public property. I got business to conduct.
Gang rivalry is a real issue at this school, and fights happen regularly. As if school wasn't tough enough, Tommy has to deal with debt collectors at home. The reason he and his father moved here is because his father racked up a huge gambling debt after Tommy's mother passed away. Now, because of his father's troubles, Tommy has to face 2 debt collectors who show up at their house, guns in hand. Luckily, they don't harm him. They only threaten that his father must pay back the overdue debt. Later that night, Tommy is woken by his father's return. His father, trying to be kind, asks about his first day at school.
How's the new school?
It's okay.
But his father doesn't buy it. Sensing Tommy is hiding something, he presses him, and Tommy admits that 2 debt collectors came by that afternoon. Hearing this deeply upsets his father, who realizes he's made a mistake that's put them in a dangerous situation.
And I'm sorry to bring you into all of this.
Promising to fix everything, he mentions he's found a high-paying job in another city, one that will allow him to clear his debts. "I'm awake now, I'm not drinking, and I'm not gambling," he promises. Tommy doesn't mind living alone for a while. He's old enough to take care of himself. To ease his father's burden, he takes a dishwashing job at a local restaurant run by his classmates' parents. But one night, the bullies from school show up at the restaurant. As soon as they see Tommy working there, they decide to pick up where they left off. At first, Tommy endures their provocation, but when they push him to the ground and mock him with grins on their faces, he can't take it anymore. He stands up and punches 2 of them. Just as he's about to confront the 3rd, an old man steps in to stop the fight. The old man introduces himself as Jack, a local boxing promoter. He claims to like Tommy's fighting style and offers him a chance to compete in an underground boxing match.
You threw a hell of a bunch out there, Tommy. Fight you. Box.
Jack is willing to pay him $600, but Tommy negotiates for $150 instead, saying he'll find someone else to fight if Jack doesn't agree. After tough negotiations, Jack accepts the terms, and they shake hands in front of the restaurant owner's daughter, Dawn. The next night, Tommy visits the underground fighting venue, where Jack introduces him to Noah, who will be training him. Noah's first piece of advice is that the fight will be brutal and fairness won't matter, as nobody cares about it. Tommy's opponent, Black Death, is notorious for fighting dirty. Surprisingly, Tommy runs into his classmate Romano, who warns him to watch out for Black Death's right hand. Taking Romano's advice to heart, Tommy steps into the ring. The entire crowd is betting on Black Death, and they erupt in cheers when he enters. Noah was right. From the start, Black Death fights dirty, throwing elbows and causing Tommy's temple to bleed. He even lands a punch to Tommy's groin, but the referee ignores it all, as anything goes in this ring. Eventually, Black Death begins to tire, giving Tommy an opening. He launches a series of attacks, knocking Black Death down and winning the fight. The crowd, bettors, and investors are shocked by his victory.
He's mine! He's mine!
When Tommy raises his hand, the crowd roars in celebration. The next day, Tommy is summoned by Jack's boss, Mr. Horn, to collect his payment. Mr. Horn, impressed with Tommy's performance, invites him to fight again. Tommy declines.
I appreciate the offer, Mr. Horn, but I'm not interested.
One day, Tommy crosses paths with Dawn, who can't hide her disappointment when she discovers that he has chosen to become an underground fighter. However, upon learning that he has only fought once, she finally breathes a sigh of relief. Tommy has no intention of becoming a full-time fighter, but everything changes when Jack asks him to meet with Horn again that afternoon. After some small talk, Horn reveals the truth. The 2 debt collectors who visited Tommy's home work for him. Worse still, Tommy's father has started gambling again, and the debt has now ballooned to $155,000. I bought those debts. They're mine now, and what's mine is yours, Horn says, but he has a solution, a way for Tommy to pay off the debt easily. All Tommy has to do is fight for him in a few more matches. As expected, Tommy accepts the offer to settle his father's debt. Later that night, Tommy decides to watch Lincoln's fight. His new friend seems to be getting overpowered by his much larger opponent. But in the end, Lincoln manages to turn the tide and win the fight. By this point, Tommy can't suppress his curiosity about Horn any longer. So after Lincoln's match, Tommy goes to No's house to ask about Horn's background. It turns out that Horn is a former boxer who even won the World Heavyweight Championship. Even more impressively, he has only lost once in his entire career, but immediately after that loss, he got revenge in a rematch, causing his opponent a lifelong injury. Eventually, though, Horn had to retire after suffering a serious leg injury. Despite multiple surgeries, by the time his leg healed, his prime years were over, and he was too old to return to the ring. So he decided to become a boxing promoter, a job that brings him plenty of money without the risk of injury. Several days pass since Dawn last visited Tommy while he was training. She's getting worried because he hasn't shown up at school lately. Tommy eventually opens up about the family problems that have been haunting him and how they've forced him back into the illegal boxing ring.
I gotta fight.
You told me you weren't fighting anymore.
Yeah, well, I guess that was a lie, because I gotta fight 4 more times.
Nobody has to fight.
No?
Fortunately, Dawn understands his situation, and they grow even closer. Life seems better than ever after Tommy becomes an underground fighter. Dawn is always by his side at his events, and they start a romantic relationship. Moreover, he develops a close friendship with Romano and Lincoln, with whom he practices and hangs out every day. However, tragedy strikes during one of Romano's fights. That night, Romano faces an opponent named Shortcut, who is clearly less skilled. Romano dominates the fight from the beginning, but when the match reaches the 5th round, Shortcut secretly drips a mysterious liquid onto his gloves. When the fight resumes, Shortcut locks Romano in a chokehold, forcing him to inhale whatever is on the gloves. As soon as Shortcut releases his grip, Romano's vision blurs, and he can no longer fight properly. Shortcut takes full advantage, brutally beating him. Even as Romano bleeds, Shortcut shows no signs of stopping, as though he enjoys torturing his opponent. From the sidelines, Tommy witnesses the horror unfolding in the ring and can't stand it anymore.
Stop the fight!
With the referee showing no intention of stopping the match, Tommy runs to the bell and rings it himself, forcing the fight to end. But by then, Romano has already collapsed unconscious in the corner of the ring. When Tommy returns home, he gets a call from his father, who sounds oddly casual, as if nothing has happened. His father only asks how Tommy is doing and explains that he has to delay his return because of unfinished business. The next day, Tommy visits Romano in the hospital, but unfortunately his friend is still unconscious, and the doctors declare him brain dead. Tommy can't just let the person responsible for Romano's condition walk free. His chance for revenge finally comes when he faces Shortcut in the ring.
How's Romano? Is he dead yet?
Shortcut taunts. Once again, Shortcut tries to pull his dirty tricks on Tommy, but this time they don't work. Tommy has seen how Shortcut drips the liquid onto his gloves. In fact, Tommy decides to fight dirty himself, striking Shortcut in the groin and causing him to cry out in pain. Tommy then unleashes a series of ruthless punches showing no mercy. He ultimately wins the fight in the 1st round. With Romano gone, Lincoln is Tommy's only close friend, but one day something happens to Lincoln during training. His body suddenly weakens, and he collapses due to a severe blow to the head he suffered the previous week. Now he's showing symptoms of brain damage, and the doctors tell him he needs to rest for at least a few days. Otherwise, he risks permanent brain damage. But Horn, the fight promoter, has other plans for Lincoln. Later that night, Tommy is confused to see the opponent he's supposed to fight engaged in a match with another boxer. He goes to Horn to ask what's going on, and that's when Horn reveals his plan. He wants Tommy to fight Lincoln, and Lincoln has agreed to it.
I'm not fighting Lincoln.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you're gonna fight Lincoln and you're gonna beat him, and I'm gonna make a lot of money. Because Lincoln's a big favorite out there.
Horn retorts. This makes Tommy furious. Given Lincoln's condition, he shouldn't be fighting, and most importantly, Tommy is afraid of losing another friend. But no matter what he says, Lincoln is determined to go through with the fight.
I got no choice, Ghost! This is my ticket. Right here.
seeing it as his big chance to prove himself to Horn, who has promised to elevate him to the professional level if he wins. Tommy realizes he can't change Lincoln's mind, so he tries to persuade Horn to cancel the fight, but his efforts are in vain. Days pass, and finally, the match between Tommy and Lincoln arrives. It's billed as the biggest match in the underground boxing circuit, and naturally Dawn is there to watch her boyfriend fight. However, Tommy isn't enthusiastic about the match, which sharply contrasts with Lincoln's aggressive attitude. Sure enough, as soon as the first round bell rings, Lincoln launches an all-out attack on Tommy. Meanwhile, Tommy remains passive. He doesn't strike back even when Lincoln knocks him down. His behavior infuriates Lincoln.
Fight me, Ghost! Fight me, I'm gonna hurt you bad!
If the fight continues this way, Horn won't pay them, and Horn doesn't like boring fights. The audience feels the same way. During the break after the second round, Horn grabs Dawn and threatens Tommy, saying that if he doesn't start fighting seriously, he'll do whatever he wants with her. But for whatever reason, Tommy refuses to hit Lincoln. One punch to Lincoln's head could be fatal. In the end, to satisfy Horn and the crowd, Tommy lands a single punch on Lincoln. He then tries to convince Lincoln to stop the pointless fight, arguing that even if one of them dies, Horn won't care. He only cares about the money. Horn wants us to kill each other. For what? So he can get rich? But Lincoln responds to Tommy's plea by hitting him in the head. At that moment, Tommy stops trying to convince Lincoln. If Lincoln wants Horn's money so badly, Tommy is ready to give it his all in the fight. But to Tommy's surprise, Lincoln finally understands what he's been saying. This doesn't feel right, Lincoln admits. They shouldn't be fighting each other. So, Lincoln decides to end the fight without finishing it, disappointing the crowd. Horn is furious. He storms into the ring and orders Lincoln to finish the fight, but Lincoln refuses, saying that from now on he won't fight for Horn. This sends Horn over the edge. Without a word, he punches Lincoln in the head, knocking him out of the ring. By now, Tommy has seen enough. He realizes that Horn has crossed the line and decides it's time to teach him a lesson. Tommy steps into the ring and challenges Horn to a duel. If Tommy wins, Horn will erase his father's debt. But if Horn wins, Tommy will work for him forever. Horn agrees, but adds one condition. They will fight without gloves. As a former boxing champion, Horn has a lot of experience, giving him the advantage. He makes fun of Tommy and embarrasses him at the start of the fight, but Horn's arrogance ends up costing him. Tommy may be young, but he's smart. He quickly learns how to counter Horn's moves and starts turning the fight around. First, Tommy lets Horn punch his head, causing one of Horn's fingers to break. Then, Tommy makes Horn angry, just like Horn had done to him earlier. Watching Horn's reactions, Tommy realizes that Horn's anger is his weakness, but that alone isn't enough to win. So Tommy pretends his right arm is hurt, catching Horn by surprise. At the perfect moment, Tommy lands a strong punch to Horn's face, followed by 13 more punches, knocking him down for good. With Horn defeated, Tommy and his father are finally free from their debt. The story ends with Tommy celebrating his victory alongside Lincoln and Dawn. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video.